Creative Manoeuvres, the 18th Australasian Association of Writing Programs Conference. Keynote speaker Michele Leggott. 25th of November 2013. Presented at the University of Canberra. Michele Leggott uses storytelling to share how losing her sight has influenced her life and writing. This lecture is delivered in darkness, which is an important part of the story.
2. If touch is a torch and the difference still you. She was a Cretan bee person, perhaps a dew person, with composite eyes, tendril hair, and a flounced skirt. Her attendants flew over an open flower while she stood on dancing feet nearby. I redrew her. The skirt fell away, and its outline became flexible limbs. She sprang from the page, she sprang from the screen, she sprang from the leg of the little Minoan table, and off they went together, the bee person, the dew person. I stood in my garden, said one. Dance me to the end of love, said the other. It is an old story, possibly a spiral. What I liked best about making the movie was artifice. We called it Heaven's Cloudy Smile. 2 sequences, one by me, the other by poet and performer Alan Brunton. We shot scenes in Auckland and Wellington. Director Sally Rodwell spliced them into a narrative that brought one poet into the other's domain. Call it blindness, call it descent, call it a terrace with a spectacular view. At the end of the Auckland filming, I sat on the front porch watching a new moon and waiting for a taxi to take me to the airport. A van pulled up. Out sprang a man, looking like a man who has come home from work to find a film crew in his house. He hands me into the van and we roar up the road into the setting sun. Sally was like that. Anyone could find themselves on camera, caught from a day or a night into the day or the night. In Thistle Hall, I watched Alan at work in a room with a single shelf of books, a jug of milk, and a white curtain blowing through an open window. He turned over pages of Artaud. The curtain billowed. He drank the milk. Innumerable bees crawled over the book, obliterating Artaud's face. 2 steps away, stage lights lit the gauzy curtain, and a fan sent it billowing through the window that was a square cut into a theatre flat. An apiarist stood by, waiting to rehouse his drowsy bees. Milk and honey, body and soul, light and dark. But it is the final night of the shoot that stays with me, not for the tricks of light or mise-en-scène, but as soundscape. We were late arriving in the studio at Lyell Bay. The schedule had run out of hours, but the voiceovers had yet to be done. Something about tiredness, about living and working closely for so many days, so many arguments, so many compromises. Something about the surf breaking evenly on the dark beach in a rising wind. Sally pushes harder than ever, sure of her direction in this and in every matter concerning voice and visuals. The planes intersect. Fire and dew collect in the corner of an eye. The great oratory of the labyrinth seems for a moment on the tip of your tongue. If touch is a torch and the difference still you, can it matter so very much if I do not see your face. I hold you, I kiss you. How can I go on without you? The price of the gate is too high. It tears me apart, and I am afraid. 3. There is the thrill of discovery. The conservator reads invisible words from the sheet of paper he is holding under ultraviolet light. As sentences take shape, I hear part of a story written by poet Robin Hyde before she left New Zealand for good early in 1938. Typewriter indents, tactile but ghostly, have drawn us to the title page of her most famous sequence of poems. Now the indents show that the page was a backing sheet for the story before Hyde rolled it into her machine again and began typing the poems about beaches from her Wellington childhood. Not here our sands, those salt and pepper sands mounding us to the chins. Don't you remember? Won't the lost shake for any cry at all? Listen, our sands, so clean we didn't care if fine grains hit your teeth stuck in your hair, were moist against the sunburn on your knees. Everything glowed, old tar bubble November, nothing around us but blue bubbling air. We liked being quiet then, to move or call, crumpled the work of hands, his big red hands. It was he, our father, piled the mounds for us. Don't you remember? Won't the lost shake for any cry at all? But her Wellington memories, vivid and sharp-edged, are double-lensed. She has been home visiting family for Christmas, and it is the hot weather of December 1937 that has opened the old vistas. As she boards the train for Auckland, a 12-year-old boy in the Hutt Valley is about to see his father lowered into the ground at the old Taita cemetery. The same air, the same heat, the same city. She is leaving. He must stay. There is the thrill of discovery. The curator comes in. She has found a printing date on the back of the studio portrait of Robin Hyde in her exhibition at the library, a few steps from the conservation workroom. Until this morning, I had only a grainy crop of the photo taken from a magazine. Now, there is a fine print and the chance of tracing its negative in the nearby collections of the National Museum. A couple of months go by. The staff at the museum cannot find the negative, so we will use the library's print for the cover image of Hyde's collected poems. The museum makes one more search. Miss I. Wilkinson's handwritten initial has been misfiled under J. The negative is there, and with it, 4 others with the same date. When the files arrive, 5 new photographs of Iris Wilkinson, aka Robin Hyde, open one after another on my desktop. There are 5 sections in the collected poems of one who could write, also in 1937. If you have linen women, raspberry women, red and thick of the mouth with dock leaf women, little light foxy spores, mind them such women. If you have green grape women, flower bin women, amber in forest, wild mint-scented women, tray bit in church, or drudging kit bag women, little, sad, bedraggled, wind has weazened me women, white bean women, perhaps anemone women, and harp-like, facing the starlight women, young, bronzy plumage, what will you do with women? 4. The poem talks to the future. We are standing at the end of a loggia, still dripping with wisteria, though it is early June. The meeting of poets in Coimbra is over. Today we found our way from the ruins at Coimbra to Luso in the Mondego Valley. Now we have come to the Summer Palace Hotel in the grounds of the park at Busako. Afternoon light bathes the fantasy architecture of the palace. An armillary sphere flashes its bracelets from the top of the Navigator's Tower. We are in Portugal, talking to the Lusitani. But I was not expecting the flash of copper from the tower. Alan Brunton's voice in the movie put it differently. On top of a tower is a crystal sphere on top of a tower that lends a kind of hauteur to the view. Below it, there is a fountain which cascades down 144 steps. At the bottom, magnolias surround a pool. The woods follow us into the forest with its Via Crucis chapels and little hermitages. There are several fountains, all exquisite, but none to match Fonte Fria, the fountain of the sun's gate. We walk up the double flight of 144 steps. We pause for contemplation at each of the 10 pools with their black and white mosaic tiles. In the cave at the top, we see water pouring from the wide open mouth of a stone dolphin. We walk slowly down, one either side of the cascade, and come to the pool at the bottom. There are no magnolias. White painted stones bear rough messages in black. No washing in the fountain. No picking of florets and ramigans. A black swan and a white swan ripple the surface of the water. Alan and Sally and their baby daughter Ruby visited Busako in the summer of 1987. They travelled on to northern Spain and looked out over the Western Ocean at Finisterre. The Busako fountain and its pools were pledged in memory to that itinerant summer and the promises one made to the other that brought them back to New Zealand the following year. Our journey takes us into the Serra da Estrela and south among the hill towns near the Spanish border. We come to Lisbon, to the Hotel Borges on Rua Garret. Outside is a larger-than-life bronze of Fernando Pessoa, Portugal's most celebrated modern poet. He sits in the shade of an umbrella near the Café Brasileira, a favourite watering hole for artists and writers in the 1910s and 20s. Tourists have their photos taken with Pessoa, sitting in the bronze seat supplied for the purpose. I wonder whether Alan, dead almost 2 years of a heart attack, would have loved or loathed this commemoration of a national icon. Certainly, he would have appreciated the sculptor's decision to scale up the poet's dimensions. My notebook is full of the trip and of Pessoa, fragments scavenged from books and websites before leaving and now interleaved with the data of the lived journey. It is time to go home. We stand where trajectory and notation cross, one into the other, remembering and forgetting detail. I hear Alan's voice again. You must assign a correct path to the poem. It is recognizable only by its date of composition, which may not be the same date it writes about. It is the sound of one person talking. The other part of the conversation is taken by silence. The poem talks to the future. I'm talking to you. 5. Poésie, Fate Part 2. Bring people together. Make spaces for speech and listening. Make time for seeing how each event is a poem, its speakers people to whom we give the gift of our attention, or who give the gift of their attention to us. When they go from the place, they take the poem with them, severally and as a whole, moving out with the new made thing. By these means, it travels on in a heart here, in memory there. By these means, it will reappear somewhere else, in another time, in another place. Every poem is an event with a horizon. Poetry is made by all in the free invention of each moment and each event. Lautréamont's Poésie Fate Part 2. The beginning of a revolutionary celebration, a going on. Bring poets together. Make events that take them from one place to another. Call them festivals, symposiums, meetings. Call them bars, cafes, theatres. Call them marae or community halls. Call them feasts or farewells. A cappella notes for stepping from one island to another. I do not evolve, I travel, observes Fernando Pessoa. We don't always read to believe, writes Martin Edmund. Sometimes we do it to travel, to forget, to dream, to change. Or Lisa Robertson, we need dignity and texture and fountains. Bring dancers with whirling bundles of flags. Bring flutes and drums. Bring the saxophone to lead the white coffin from the deconsecrated chapel. Sally Rodwell, unable to live without Alan and terrified of the psych ward to which she felt she was descending, has ended her own life after 4 years of widowhood. The saxophonist hears his high C break into 1,000 pieces and fall to the stone floor. Touching the ears we go, into and out of our time, trying, yes, to reconcile how it was with what has come and taken us somewhere else. The moon's the same, coming in closer than before, as if to say, look, I am your consolation, though I never knew how much you cared. And I can't know how it feels to lose what I never had. Do you understand? I'm not here because I was your hallucination. It makes me weep to see you cry. And I want to say, please open your eyes and take your fingers out of your beautiful ears. I was going my own way, deeper and deeper into space. But now we must talk again. Please listen. Please lift up your beautiful head. I am waiting for you, catechumens, just outside the window. 6. The blog, the book, and the crayfish. Posts for my part of the Poet Laureate blog run from January of one year to July of the next. They are snapshots of events connected with the laureateship and with the project that became a book called Michele Leggott. A small number of poems were posted to the blog, usually to mark the occasion for which they were written or as staging points in the evolution of the book. Michele Leggott means wonderful to relate, and the book's poems appear in the order they were written, starting with a poet's funeral and finishing with a family wedding. They make a whole that traverses time and space. In some ways, they are one long poem in many parts, a poem that started not knowing where it would end. The blog and the poems continued beyond the last poem of the book, a kind of overflow to wrap up the 18 months of the laureateship. There were many highlights in the real world during that year and a half, and the blog tries to catch and put visuals to some of them. But it was the work of writing another world into existence, of hearing and seeing it take shape alongside daily reality, that made the laureate time exceptional. As each poem was written, it was sent to those whose words were part of its tissue memory, a network of first readers who made the experience intensely sociable, crisscrossing and overlapping with each other, one leading to the next or back to an earlier meeting point. Expert feedback arrived from these first readers who were quick to nose out inaccuracies. I was listening to the radio after getting back from the book launch and handing over the laureateship. I was also composing a thank you for my cousin's gift of some spectacular seafood after the family gathering in Wellington. In that heady moment, the answer to an old question seemed suddenly clear. Poetry is a crayfish or two, packed in wood shavings, flying home in a chili box with my name on it. Dear family, it's been a long time. Let's go hunting the past in order to find the future. You ask me what poetry is, and I tell you about the whale and her calf tracking in the Gulf. The Coast Guard has been alerted because boaties might collide with them. The Rimutaka Hill Road is closed. The Rimutaka Hill Road is always closed. A work in progress, or a bit character, like the dairy giant Fonterra, or the Prime Minister John Key, who was on the same flight last night. The survivor of the wreck is wearing a French naval uniform. No lies at the end of a long week. La glorieuse for entente cordiale. La glorieuse. The old man bought a couple of tiger moths back in the day, top-dressed and flew supplies into the farm. 4 minutes more daylight since the shortest day. Dear family, one cray is lost in action, and the other will not make it past dinner time tonight. This is poetry. You make it happen wherever there are ears, eyes, and mouths. Wherever we sit down to add flying hours to the work in progress. Wherever, dear family, we are, and the news comes in thick and fast. Seven. It is the middle of June last year. I am trying to complete an editing project. I am trying to write an introduction. I am trying to bring together the book of poems I can still see on my computer screen. It is a race against time. I am using the audio software to listen when I need to read the screen. I am using a magnifier window to bring parts of the screen into close focus. My head hurts. The sentences won't form. I cannot leap the gap that opens between the end of one huge word in white on my black screen and the beginning of the next huge word. It will not do. I cannot do it. We have spent several months learning how to write and edit with the audio software. I dream constantly of being 5 years old and learning to read, learning to write, learning to think. I am often in the dappled shade under the shade tree at the school gate. I have my book and the crayon, which is dark until on paper it releases the colour that is neither blue nor green, but somewhere between or both. I know how to write. I know how to draw. I know how to read the world. I am 5 years old, and it is now. Then it happens. I turn off the visuals and write using my ears and fingers. The words come easily. They are slow, but they do not hurt. The visuals have gone. I take out the last contact lens for the last time and go to bed terrified. In the morning, I will say that this is the moment I stopped beating up my eyes. They have done their work, and I am thankful for it. Without them, I would not have deep reservoirs of visual memory. Let us go on into the dark and not be afraid. There is a lot to be done. It is June last year. It is now. Let me show you how she walked into the arms of a tau cross, following the bird's call. It was simple, dark blocks to left and right, the hallway filled with light from the front door, the bird in a bedroom, the cat arriving, the dog excited and best shut away, the bird calling from behind the door, with the dog released and now in the other room. The front door open, the cat shut away, the bird quiet and perhaps gone. Wings against light streaming into the house, aerialist in a tight corner, cursor against the light a moment. Let me show you the walking, the rooms, the bird's call in the house, the open door, the rooms full of sunlight, a tau cross against which the bird rises and falls, a moment in her arms, calling depth and height and exit, a gate, a journey, a tau cross, fan of tail feathers, quick prayer, in the week of the olive harvest, let them be safe. Whom she sees in the hallway, disappearing into one or other of the rooms, small again in the house of their growing up. Gates and journeys surround her, walking into the arms of a tau cross, where the bird makes its simple call, a tau cross with its arms full of sunlight. Thank you.
Questions. How has your relationship changed towards the books and poems you love since losing your vision?
That's a very good question, isn't it? I did this, I looked at the last 20 years. I've written for longer than 20, but I think 2 decades was a good space, 93 to 2013, that's a good space to look at and to kind of examine this. Over that 20 years, a terrible thing happened, which is that as it got harder to read on the page, it became much harder, much more work to push my eyes through things. And I began really to starve, if you like, in my head. I should have hooked myself up to talking books. I should have got people to record things. But there was a terrible time where I just closed in and I let things go. And it's too hard. It's too hard to read this stuff. I've been working all day and I don't want to read poetry for fun anymore. And you reach a point where either you stop reading poetry at that point because it's too hard, or something has to change. And it did, and it's audio poetry and it is the web. So I've got no excuses, okay? I can't see those pages anymore. But there are plenty of people around me, and I'm a university teacher, and there are lots of eyes in any of the rooms that I'm in. And I used to pride myself on reading the poetry aloud that I was talking about, until I discovered that there are other people in the room who could do it just as well, if not better. And it's a way also of making it comfortable for students in a room with a blind lecturer. You've got to make them comfortable so that they're not worried about you tripping over something or doing something stupid. So if you say, look, my eyes don't work, but I'm looking for somebody to read this poem, and I know you've all got your heads down. Usually somebody, some brave soul will step up and actually read, and that was to get the voices coming back to me was really important. But also, to be blind in the 21st century, it's the century to be blind in, folks. The internet, the enormous archival capacity of the internet for not only text but now for audio and for video. Okay, I can click of a button. Click, get it, listen to it. We've just in New Zealand published, the wonderful Eleanor Catton, all 800 pages of the Luminaries, right? How many of you read it?
Yes.
Oh, good. But you all had to lug around the 800 pages, didn't you? If you go to audible.com, you can download it for about $12 onto your iPod, and you've got 29 hours of listening. And that's to say, there are so many ways now in which to bring it back into, if I let it isolate me, I'd be lost, okay? That's just a general principle. So you just work at the ways of bringing it back.
You used your iPod as an audio prompt. Were you listening to a recording of your own voice as you spoke?
That's exactly what I was doing, and you heard me stumble a couple of times, so I'm not yet pitch perfect at doing it. I've used the iPod since May. Before that, there was an MP3 player, but it was all clicks and bangs, and if I got lost, I couldn't find my way back to the track. What we've done is record a lot of my poetry, but I have discovered it doesn't have to be me doing the poems either. As long as there's a voice, I call it an audio prompt. You guys all look at a printed page, and we've all forgotten that moment when we were about 5 or 6, when we learned how to read off a page. And I'm just having to relearn that, except what I'm listening to is in my ear. And I can be just behind or just in front of that recorded voice. So, I can do it differently each time. I do have to kind of stick to it. I'm never going to go over time because I always know exactly how long the presentation is. I recommend this. If you're ever stuck in a time when somebody's gone on and on and on and you think, oh God. I could tell Jen this morning that it was 36 minutes and 48 seconds.
I timed it,
it's
was
great.
right.
Yeah, no, it's the iPod, the way that it's special for me. I mean, any of you can do this if you so felt like it. There's tons of poetry out there on the web, or record your own straight off the computer, stick the earpiece in and push play, and you'll find it only takes a little bit of practice, and people think you've got a remarkably good memory because they don't actually see the earpiece. But it's more special for me because the audio software that I use on my computer, I use a Mac, that same audio software is available on the iPod. So that for me is the magic. I can navigate that iPod in a way that I just can't do it on a standard MP3 player. So on that iPod, are all my books, all my poetry, photos if I could see them. There's just a mountain of stuff on that iPod, so it's never out of my grasp. It's such a special. I mean, there'll be other devices, and I could, if I got a phone, I guess, put all the poetry onto an iPhone and just pull out my phone and do what I did. But imagine if the phone rang. It would be a variation on the please turn off your cell phones before we start. So yeah, that's the iPod, and for me it's working very, very well. So it'd be great if somebody else tried it.
Have you noticed a shift in your work since losing your vision?
Synesthesia, the things all get mixed up. From that presentation, the visual presentation, what I was trying to say there was, I am a totally visual person, and I still am. It's just that my eyes don't work. And you think about that, there's a brain here with a visual cortex that's sitting around going, come on, where's the stuff? There's no data coming in, what's going on? So to a certain extent, that is a huge deficit. There's a brain there that's been trained one way that is having to kind of repurpose itself. And it does happen, it is happening, I can feel it happening. I think what I'm doing, and this won't be the same for all people losing sight, I think what I'm doing, I've had a very long time to get used to this. It's more than 20 years. It's about 20, just a little bit over 20. I've had an enormously long goodbye to the visual world. And in that sense, I'm like a bridge, or I'm walking over a bridge between one world and another. And I'm a language person and I'm a visual person, and I've always been those two things. And in my view, I think I'm walking over that bridge, if you like, bringing stuff from one world into the other and hoping to link those two worlds. So I don't see that there's a dearth in the world without visuals. I'm finding it really interesting being over here. I can see that in my more recent poetry there's an awful lot more to do with sound, but you would expect that. More interestingly, the poems that I've that last one that I read, the one about the Tau Cross, I have a very strange relationship to that poem because I've never seen it. I gave myself 6 months off writing any poetry as I was trying to adapt to the software. It was just too difficult. And then very tentatively in December of last year, I started writing poems again, and it was so strange because I've been so used to seeing those words come down on the screen or go down on a page, and it was very, very odd to be writing, just listening to the lines, deciding when a line would finish, what it would look like, and at the end, to come back through it, listening to it, and realise that I would never see this poem. I know it's a long, skinny poem, but that's about all I know about it. But that's okay, it's interesting.
How does a poet enter the darkness between two cultures?
If I can't do it myself, then I've got wonderful colleagues whom I work with at the University of Auckland, whom I think of us walking together. The colleague I'm thinking of particularly, some of you will know her, is Selena Tusitala-Marsh, and she's of Tuvaluan and of Samoan extraction and German extraction, And she's a wonderful poet. And she and I, she's worked in the department now for 6 or 7 years. And we're just like that, okay? I love Selena's work. I love what she does. And she has been an inspiration to me. She's a wonderful performer. And I would say in those 6 or 7 years, she's one of the people that I have listened to. She has taught me. Her Pacifica culture has taught me. I'm just listening to it. I'm standing beside her, listening to what she does and getting such a lot from it. The Poet Laureateship is a seriously bicultural phenomenon in New Zealand. It's got a very serious Maori aspect to it, and you get invested into the laureateship, not only in Wellington, where the National Library is, which administers the program. You also go to the marae in Hawke's Bay at Matahiwi, because there you are given a tokotoko, which is a talking stick that's been carved or made especially for you, the current Poet Laureate. And you're on that marae, and you are, when you're on a marae, you are surrounded by poetry, the oratory of Maori tradition, and just the ways, the protocols, Maori protocol. It is a kind of poetry. So there's another instance in which, I'm not Maori, but I was welcomed onto that marae as the first Poet Laureate. They made me so welcome. They said to me, you just listen. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. We'll set you right. Mm-hmm. Okay, which was great because I was very nervous. They welcomed me on as the first Poet Laureate. They made that time at Matahiwi so special. And again, I was privileged to be sitting there listening. Okay, I can't speak Māori. Okay, I have a few phrases, but I have got ears and I can listen. So to answer your question in a nutshell, I can't see, but I think the ears are the common point for me. I love listening to those things between cultures.